Most people don't fail from lack of ability. They fail because they don't get organized. They live with disorder in the mind, with confusion in time, and with decisions made without clarity. They start the day with intention, but without direction. They do many things, but don't advance. They make effort, but don't build. Over time, that lack of structure becomes exhaustion, frustration, and the feeling of repeating the same life. Get organized is not a minor habit. It's a decision that defines results. When there's no order, discipline weakens. When there's no order, goals disperse. When there's no order, even talent loses impact. Success doesn't appear when you have more desire. It appears when your life has structure. And that structure begins when you decide to get organized and sustain that order day after day. A mind without order reacts to everything. An organized mind thinks before acting. A life without organization consumes energy. A life with order directs it toward what matters. Many believe they need to change their life completely, when in reality, they need to organize it better. It's not about doing more things, but about giving order to what you already do. When order enters, chaos loses force. It doesn't limit. It clarifies. When you don't get organized, each day weighs, each decision exhausts, each goal seems distant. But when you start to put order, even the difficult becomes manageable. You stop improvising and begin to advance with intention. This audiobook doesn't seek to motivate you for a few minutes. It seeks to help you get organized to truly advance, to observe with honesty where order is lacking, where focus is lost, and where energy is wasted. Because success is not built on disorder. Here you'll learn to organize your mind to think better, to give order to your day to advance with intention, to organize your goals to stop postponing, and understand why people who live with structure end up getting further, even without having more talent than others. Before continuing, do something simple but important. Write in the comments this phrase and take it as a personal commitment. Today I decide to get organized and put order to have success. It's not just a phrase, it's a decision. Nothing you'll hear is complicated, but it does require determination. It requires stopping living reacting and starting to live with direction. Listen carefully, not to feel better for a moment, but to start acting better each day. Because when you get organized and order becomes part of your life, progress stops being a struggle and becomes a consequence. This is the starting point. Get organized. Success begins there. Chapter 1. Why not getting organized keeps you stuck? Many people feel their life doesn't advance, but don't know how to point out with precision what's failing. They work, make effort, fulfill responsibilities, and keep busy throughout the day, but results don't appear. Over time, a dangerous feeling arises, doing a lot and achieving little. That feeling wears down because effort is not reflected in real advances. In most cases, the cause is not lack of ability or opportunities, but something more basic and more ignored: lack of organization. When you don't get organized, your energy disperses without you noticing. You start the day reacting to the urgent and not acting on the important. You attend to what appears first, what interrupts, what demands immediate response, and you leave for later what really builds results. This pattern repeats day after day and generates mental tiredness because each decision is made from improvisation and not from a clear structure. Thinking becomes heavy, choosing becomes exhausting, and advancing becomes confusing. A life without organization forces you to live putting out fires. You respond to messages, solve problems, fulfill commitments, and attend to external demands. But you don't build direction. The day drags you and you adapt to it. Little by little, this way of living weakens self-confidence because you feel you're losing control of your own time and your own decisions. You begin to doubt your capacity, not because you're incapable, but because you don't see sustained results. Disorder is not always visible. It can exist even when everything seems to be in its place on the outside. It manifests in inconclusive thoughts, in unclear goals, in priorities that constantly change. You know you want to improve, that you want to advance, but you don't know where to start or what to sustain over time. That lack of internal order is one of the main causes of personal stagnation, because without clarity, there's no direction. Here appears a key point many people don't understand. Getting organized is not just planning tasks. It's deciding with intention. It's consciously choosing what deserves your energy and what doesn't. It's establishing a clear order between the urgent and the important. When you don't do this, Even good intentions dilute. You start with enthusiasm, but abandon because your life doesn't have a structure that backs your decisions. Get organized and something changes immediately, not because problems disappear, but because you know what to do first. You start to reduce mental noise. You stop carrying everything at the same time. You learn to divide your responsibilities, your objectives, and your tasks into manageable parts. This not only improves your results, it also strengthens your mind and your sensation control over your own life. A fundamental practical teaching is this: don't try to organize your entire life all at once. That only generates frustration. Start with the basics. Define with clarity 3 priorities for your day, no more. Everything that's not aligned with those priorities passes to the background. This simple exercise creates immediate order and reduces a constant sensation of chaos. Another essential practice is closing cycles. Inconclusive tasks, postponed decisions, and accumulated pending items occupy mental space constantly. Each unfinished thing consumes attention and energy. Organizing you implies finishing, deciding, or eliminating. What is not resolved drags, and what drags slows you down more than you imagine. Stagnation doesn't arrive from one day to the next. It's built slowly each time you postpone getting organized, each time you accept living without structure, each time you improvise the important. At first it seems harmless, but over time it becomes an invisible limit that blocks your personal and professional growth. Many people believe order will take away their freedom. In reality, the opposite occurs. When there's no organization, everything weighs more. When there's order, decisions simplify. Getting organized doesn't enclose you. It frees you from constant chaos and from the feeling of always running behind everything. As long as you don't get organized, you'll keep spinning in the same place. You can change goals, environment, or even motivation, but the result will be similar. The problem is not what you want, but how your life is structured to sustain that which you want. This is the first real step. Stop improvising your life and start directing it with intention. Because only when you decide to get organized, advance stops being a constant struggle and starts to become a natural consequence. Chapter 2. The mind needs order to be able to advance. Before life can be organized on the outside, it needs to be ordered on the inside. Many people try to change habits, routines, or results without attending to the real state of their mind. They want discipline, focus, and constancy, but their thinking functions in a dispersed way, and a dispersed mind cannot sustain an organized life, no matter how good the intentions exist. When the mind lacks order, everything is perceived more difficult than it really is. Repetitive thoughts, constant worries, and postponed decisions consume energy without you realizing it. It's not that you have too many problems. It's that your mind tries to sustain them all at the same time without hierarchy or clarity. That invisible effort exhausts and weakens the capacity to act with precision. A disordered mind lives in reaction. It reacts to the past, to what went wrong, to what wasn't done, to what was lost. It also reacts to the future, anticipating scenarios that don't yet exist. In that state, the present dilutes, and with it the capacity to make firm decisions. Action loses force because it's born from confusion and not from intention. Get organized mentally and something fundamental begins to change. You start to think with direction. No longer everything has the same weight. You learn to distinguish what really matters from what only generates noise. This clarity doesn't appear alone. It's built when you decide to put order in what you allow to occupy your attention each day. A key practical teaching is this: not every thought deserves to be followed. Many people believe thinking a lot is thinking better, when in reality, thinking better implies thinking with order. Organizing your mind begins when you consciously choose which ideas to feed and which to let pass. Unnecessary thoughts don't provide solutions. They only occupy mental space. Another essential point: reduce unnecessary mental load. Endless mental lists, undefined pending items, and constant reminders saturate the mind. A simple but powerful practice is to write. Noting down tasks, ideas, and pending decisions frees mental space. When something is written, it stops occupying your mind constantly and loses unnecessary urgency. The mind also needs emotional order. Unprocessed emotions transform into internal noise, irritation, guilt, frustration, or fear. They occupy mental space when not recognized. Organizing you implies observing what you feel without reacting immediately. Naming the emotion creates distance, and that distance returns control over your actions. When there's no mental order, even goals become confusing. You want advance, but you don't know with clarity toward where. You start things you don't finish. You constantly change objectives. This is not lack of commitment. It's lack of internal clarity. An organized mind sustains a clear direction, even when difficulties appear. A concrete practice to create mental order is to begin the day with intention, not with stimuli. Starting the morning reacting to messages, news, or social media disorganizes the mind from early. Dedicating a few minutes to define what deserves your attention that day completely changes the way you think and act during the following hours. It's also fundamental to learn to close the day. A mind that doesn't turn off correctly accumulates tension. Reviewing what was done, what remained pending, and leaving it noted allows resting without carrying everything in your head. Mental rest is not a luxury. It's part of order. The mind needs structure to advance, just as the body needs rest to perform. You can't demand clarity from yourself if you live in constant saturation. Get organized mentally, and you'll notice making decisions becomes simpler, acting becomes more fluid, and advancing stops feeling heavy. This chapter leaves a clear idea. You cannot build an organized life on a mind in chaos. External order begins with internal clarity. When your mind gets organized, your life starts to follow it naturally. Chapter 3. The lack of daily organization weakens your discipline. Discipline is not lost from one day to the next. It weakens slowly when your day lacks a clear structure. Many people believe they're not disciplined when in reality, they live without a daily order that sustains it. They try to advance relying solely on willpower, without understanding that will is limited and exhausts quickly when organization doesn't exist. When you don't have a defined structure, each day becomes an improvisation. You decide on the go what to do, when to do it, and what to focus on. This type of life seems flexible, but in reality, it's unstable. Each decision consumes mental energy, and at the end of the day, you feel tired without knowing exactly why. It's not the work that exhausts. It's the lack of order in the daily. Discipline doesn't consist of demanding more from yourself, but of deciding less. And that's only possible when your day has a clear form. A daily structure eliminates the need to constantly negotiate with yourself. You know what needs to be done and you do it, not because you feel like it, but because it's already decided. This reduces internal wear and strengthens constancy. Get organized and you'll notice a concrete difference in your energy. When you know what time you begin, what you focus on, and when you finish, your mind relaxes. Mental chaos diminishes because no longer everything depends on the moment. Structure acts as a silent support that maintains advance even when motivation lowers or disappears. A fundamental practical teaching is to establish fixed points in your day. It's not about filling the agenda or living with rigidity, but about creating anchors. Define hours to start the day, to work on the important, and to close the day. These fixed points generate internal order and reduce mental friction. Discipline is born when the day has a recognizable form. Another common error is overloading the day. Wanting to do too much breaks the structure and weakens discipline. Organizing you also implies accepting limits. A well-structured day is not the one that has more tasks, but the one that has clear and realistic priorities. When everything is priority, discipline dilutes and advance breaks. The lack of daily structure also affects constancy. You start projects with enthusiasm, but abandon them because they don't have a defined space in your routine. Without a concrete place in the day, any habit is fragile. Daily order is what allows an action to repeat until becoming part of your identity. A concrete practice to strengthen discipline is to define one main task per day, not 10. 1. The one that if fulfilled makes the day have been worthwhile. Everything else is secondary. This approach reduces dispersion, strengthens focus, and reinforces a sensation of real advance. It's also important to respect closures. A day without closure leaves the mind open and loaded. Finishing, even if it's in a simple way, reinforces discipline. Reviewing what was done, recognizing the advance, and making clear the next step keeps the structure alive and functional. Discipline is not hardness, it's coherence. And coherence only sustains when there's organization. You can't demand constancy from yourself if each day functions differently. Body and mind need predictability to perform better and sustain effort over time. This chapter makes an essential idea clear. Without daily structure, discipline weakens not because character is lacking, but because order is lacking. Get organized in the daily, and you'll notice advancing stops depending on mood and starts depending on decisions already made. Chapter 4. Without clear priorities, everything becomes urgent. One of the greatest reasons many people feel their life is out of control is the lack of clear priorities. When you don't know what's most important, everything seems urgent. Each message, each problem, and each external request demands immediate attention. The day fills with activity, but real advance doesn't appear. Not because effort is lacking, but because direction and criteria to decide what deserves attention are lacking. Without priorities, you live reacting. You attend to what arrives first, what interrupts, what pressures. The urgent displaces the important over and over. And when this pattern repeats during weeks or months, your personal objectives always remain for later, not because they don't matter to you, but because they never occupy a firm place within your daily structure. Thus life fills with movement, but not with progress. Get organized starting by accepting a simple but uncomfortable truth. Not everything deserves the same level of attention. Order doesn't consist of doing more things, but of deciding which things are worth your time and your energy. When you don't establish priorities, you allow the environment, others' urgencies, and external demands to decide for you how to use your hours. And when that occurs, you lose control without realizing it. A fundamental practical teaching is to learn to differentiate between the urgent and the important. The urgent demands immediate response, but many times doesn't build anything long-term. The important doesn't always pressure, but it's what really transforms your life. Organizing you implies protecting the important from the constant noise of the urgent. If you don't do it consciously, the day organizes itself and almost never in your favor. Another common error is trying to attend to too many priorities at the same time. Many people believe having several fronts open is a sign of commitment or ambition, when in reality it's usually a sign of dispersion. Order appears when you reduce. Choosing few priorities doesn't limit you, it focuses you. Get organized around essential and allow the secondary to wait without guilt or anxiety. The lack of clear priorities also generates emotional wear. Living putting out fires produces constant stress and a permanent sensation of being behind. You never finish the day with satisfaction because there's always something pending. When you define priorities, you recover a sensation of control. You know what to tend to now, what can wait, and what doesn't deserve your energy in that moment. A concrete practice to create order is to define your priorities by stages, not just by days. Ask yourself, what's most important at this moment in your life? It can be improving a skill, strengthening a relationship, ordering your finances, or taking care of your health. Everything that doesn't contribute directly to that priority is evaluated with greater care. This filter reduces unnecessary decisions and frees mental energy. In the day-to-day, order is reinforced by choosing a single priority task, the one that if fulfilled makes the day have been worthwhile. This practice avoids dispersion, strengthens discipline, and generates a clear sensation of advance. It's not about doing everything, but about doing the right thing first, even when there are many distractions around. Many people confuse flexibility with disorder. They believe getting organized is losing spontaneity. In reality, order gives you margin of adaptation. When you know what your priorities are, you can adjust to changes without losing direction. The problem is not changing. It's changing without criteria or purpose. Without clear priorities, life fills with others' urgencies. With defined priorities, you recover control of your time and your energy. Getting organized is not filling your agenda. It's consciously deciding what deserves to be in it and what must stay out. This chapter leaves a central idea. If you don't define the important, the urgent will decide for you. And when others decide how you use your time, personal advance becomes slow, confusing, and frustrating. Get organized establishing clear priorities. Order begins when you decide what is truly important. Chapter 5. Disorder in time steals results from you. Many people feel time is not enough for them, but rarely stop to analyze how they use it. They live with the constant sensation of being busy, running from one task to another, and still important results don't appear. The problem is not lack of time. It's lack of organization of time. When there's no order in how you distribute your hours, effort disperses and progress delays. Time is a limited and constant resource. Everyone has the same amount each day. The difference is not in having more hours, but in how they're used. A life without temporal organization feels accelerated but unproductive. There's always something to do, but almost never a clear sensation of advance. Days pass and objectives remain intact. When you don't get organized with time, a repetitive pattern appears. You do first what's easy, immediate, or urgent, and you leave for later what really matters. This habit repeats until becoming a way of living. Thus, important tasks always remain relegated, and days fill with activities that don't build real results. Get organized and start seeing time as a space that must be protected. Not everything deserves the same moment of the day. Temporal order consists of assigning important tasks to moments of greatest mental clarity, not to the spaces that are left over. When you do this, effort becomes more effective and less exhausting. A fundamental practical teaching is to stop planning only by hours and begin to organize yourself by blocks. A block is a period of time dedicated to a single activity without interruptions or multitasking. This approach reduces dispersion, improves concentration, and diminishes mental wear. Order is not in doing faster, but in doing with full attention. Another key point is learning to say no. Each unnecessary commitment occupies a space that could be destined for your priorities. Many people live with a full agenda, but with a constant sensation of dissatisfaction. Organizing you implies consciously choosing what you invest your time in, and accepting not everything can enter your day without consequences. Disorder in time also manifests in constant postponement. Leaving everything for later generates a permanent mental load. A concrete practice to combat this is to assign specific moments for important tasks, even if they're short. 15 or 20 minutes well used, sustained over time, are worth more than dispersed hours without focus. It's also essential to order the beginning and closing of the day. Starting without direction generates chaos from early. Reviewing your phone as soon as you wake up disorganizes your mind before starting. In the same way, ending the day without closure leaves accumulated tension. A clear beginning defines a rhythm. A conscious closing prepares the next day. Both form part temporal order. When time has no structure, discipline weakens. Everything depends on mood or the urgency of the moment. But when you organize your time, many decisions are already made. You stop negotiating with yourself and begin to act with greater clarity and coherence. This chapter leaves a clear idea. Success is not built in isolated moments. It's built in the daily use of time. If you don't put order in your hours, others will do it for you. Get organized with your time, and you'll notice advancing stops feeling forced and starts feeling natural and sustained. Chapter 6. Without order in your goals, you walk without direction. Many people say they have goals, but in practice live guided by diffuse desires. They want to advance, improve, or have success, but can't explain with clarity what that means in their daily life. When goals are not organized, they become vague ideas that generate momentary impulse, but not sustained action. Without order in goals, effort disperses and direction is lost. The problem is not aspiring to more, but not structuring what is desired. A goal without order doesn't influence your daily decisions. It doesn't define how you use your time or how you distribute your energy. That's why many people work, make effort, and still feel they don't advance. They move, but don't know if what they do really brings them closer to something concrete. Get organized starting by defining your goals with real clarity. It's not enough to know what you want. You need to understand what you want it for and what you're willing to sustain over time. When a goal lacks clear purpose, it's abandoned at the first difficulty. Order gives it weight, meaning, and continuity. An organized goal becomes a constant reference point. A fundamental practical teaching is to divide big goals into small and concrete objectives. A goal that's too broad overwhelms and paralyzes. A clear objective guides action. Order appears when you know what the next step is, not when you try to encompass everything at the same time. Advancing becomes possible when the path is defined in manageable parts. Another frequent error is maintaining too many active goals at the same time. This generates dispersion, mental tiredness, and constant frustration. Organizing you implies choosing. Everything can't grow at once. Order demands prioritizing, and accepting some goals must wait so others can develop with solidity. Fewer well-worked goals produce more results than many poorly sustained goals. It's also important to establish realistic deadlines, not as a form of pressure, but as a structure that orders the process. A goal without defined time becomes abstract and easy to postpone. Order transforms intention into commitment. When you know by when, you act with greater consciousness and responsibility. Disorder in goals also manifests when tracking doesn't exist. Many people propose something and then don't review it again. Organizing you implies evaluating, adjusting, and correcting course when necessary. Order is not rigidity. It's constant attention to the path you're traveling. Reviewing your goals avoids advancing in wrong directions for too long. A concrete practice to give order to your goals is to review them periodically. Ask yourself if they continue being relevant, if your daily actions are aligned with them, and if you need to redefine focus. This review maintains clarity and avoids useless self-demand. Order is also knowing how to adjust without abandoning. When your goals are organized, daily decisions simplify. You know how to say no more easily. You know what to focus on and what to let pass. Order in goals acts as an internal compass that guides your actions even when distractions, tiredness, or doubts appear. Without order in goals, any path seems valid, and any distraction justifies itself. With clear and organized goals, the course sustains. Get organized in what you want to achieve, and you'll notice how your energy stops dispersing and starts directing itself with intention. This chapter leaves a central idea. You can't arrive anywhere if you don't define where you're going. Success is not moving a lot. It's advancing in the correct direction. And that direction only appears when you put order in your goals and decide to truly get organized. Chapter 7. Emotional order sustains or sabotages your advance. Many people try to organize their life from external, but ignore a decisive factor, the emotional state from which they act. They can have clear goals, defined schedules, and well-structured plans, but if their emotions are not in order, that entire system becomes fragile. Emotional disorder doesn't always show, but it's felt in the way you react, decide, and advance. When emotions are not organized, they govern behavior. You react from anger, fear, frustration, or insecurity without realizing it. In that state, getting organized becomes difficult because each overflowing emotion interrupts focus. Today you advance, tomorrow you stop. Today you decide something, tomorrow you doubt it. Progress becomes unstable and exhausting, not from lack of capacity, but from lack of internal balance. Emotional order doesn't mean eliminating what you feel or pretending permanent calm. It means understanding what occurs inside you before acting. Many people confuse strength with repression when in reality repressing emotions creates internal tension. What is not recognized accumulates, and what accumulates ends up influencing your decisions unconsciously, sabotaging personal organization. Get organized emotionally starting with something simple. Observe what you feel before reacting. Not every impulse deserves an immediate response. An identified emotion loses force. Naming it allows you to take distance and recover control. It's not about denying what you feel, but about avoiding it directing your actions without filter or criteria. A key practical teaching is to separate emotion from decision. You can feel tiredness and still fulfill a minimum action. You can feel fear and still advance with caution. Emotional order appears when you decide not to act from impulse, but from intention. This capacity strengthens personal coherence and reduces the quantity of decisions you later regret. Another fundamental point is recognizing repetitive emotional patterns. Constant irritation, frequent frustration, sensation of insufficiency, or recurring guilt. These emotions don't appear by chance. They indicate internal disorder. Organizing you implies asking yourself what activates them, in what moments they appear, and what situations repeat them. Without this observation, you'll continue reacting the same in different contexts. Emotional order is also profoundly linked to limits. Many people live emotionally exhausted because they don't know how to say no. They accept more than they can sustain and then feel saturated, irritated, or frustrated. Organizing you implies establishing clear limits to protect your energy. Order is not coldness. It's conscious self-care. A concrete practice to give emotional order is to close the day with internal review. Ask yourself how you reacted, what situations altered you, and what you could handle differently. Not to judge yourself, but to learn. This exercise, sustained over time, reduces repetition of emotional errors and strengthens self-control. When emotions are in order, the mind clears and action becomes more stable. You no longer depend so much on mood to act. You advance with greater coherence between what you think, feel, and do. That coherence sustains discipline, strengthens organization, and allows you to advance even on difficult days. Emotional disorder doesn't disappear ignoring it. It's corrected organizing it, and when you do, constancy becomes more solid, goals are respected, and advance stops being intermittent. This chapter leaves an essential idea. You cannot build an organized life from constant emotional chaos. Success requires external structure, but also internal balance. Get organized emotionally, and you'll notice how advancing stops being an internal struggle and starts feeling more stable, conscious, and sustainable. Chapter 8. The environment influences more than you imagine. Many people try to organize their life focusing solely on willpower, without paying attention to the environment in which they live. They believe everything depends on internal discipline, when in reality the environment influences constantly in how you think, feel, and act. A disordered environment reinforces mental disorder. Even when real intention to advance exists, the environment is not neutral. Everything that surrounds you sends silent signals to your mind. Saturated spaces, objects out of place, constant visual noise, and unnecessary stimuli consume part of your attention without you noticing it. Over time, this invisible wear affects your mental clarity, your concentration, and your capacity to sustain organized habits. When there's no order in the environment, getting organized becomes more difficult. You lose time looking for things, you get distracted easily, and you postpone simple tasks because they require additional effort. External disorder generates constant friction, and where there's constant friction, discipline weakens and constancy becomes fragile. Get organized starting with the visible, not because the external is more important than the internal, but because it's more accessible to correct. Physical order generates an immediate sensation of control. When a space clears, the mind responds. It's not suggestion. It's coherence between what you see and what you try to build internally. A fundamental practical teaching is to reduce before reorganizing. Many people try to order without eliminating, and that only changes disorder's place. Organizing you implies deciding what stays and what goes, what you don't use, what doesn't contribute, and what only occupies space ends up stealing energy. Order begins when you choose with intention and without unnecessary attachment. Another key point is assigning a defined place to each thing. When something doesn't have a clear place, it generates repeated chaos. This simple practice reduces unnecessary decisions and saves time. Order is not in constantly arranging, but in each object having a function and a concrete space within your environment. The environment is not only physical, it's also digital. Constant notifications, unnecessary applications, disorganized files, and saturated screens create a type of silent disorder, but very invasive. Organizing you implies putting limits on digital stimuli, reducing notifications, ordering information, and deciding when to be available and when not as a way of protecting your focus. A concrete practice to create order in the environment is to start with a small space, a desk, a table, a room. Don't try to encompass everything at the same time. Order is built step by step. Each organized space reinforces a sensation of advance and strengthens personal discipline. The environment also directly influences your habits. If what distracts you is always within reach, your focus weakens. If the important is visible and accessible, acting becomes simpler. Organizing you implies designing your environment to help you, not to put constant obstacles that weaken your will. Many people blame themselves for not advancing without realizing their environment works against them. Advance becomes simpler when the environment accompanies. External order reduces internal resistance, facilitates action, and sustains constancy even when motivation fluctuates. This chapter leaves a clear idea. You can't demand mental clarity if you live surrounded by chaos. The environment doesn't determine your success, but it can facilitate it or make it difficult constantly. Get organized also in what surrounds you. When the environment orders itself, the mind responds and advance becomes more natural, stable, and sustained. Chapter 9. Discipline is born from order, not from motivation. Many people believe they need to feel motivated to advance. They wait to have desire, energy, or enthusiasm before acting. That approach usually leads to frustration because motivation is unstable. It appears and disappears according to mood, tiredness, or circumstances. Real progress is not built on motivation. It's built on order. When your life lacks structure, you depend too much on how you feel. If you have mood, you advance. If you don't have it, you postpone. This cycle weakens constancy and generates guilt, not because capacity is lacking, but because a system doesn't exist that sustains action when emotion lowers. Discipline wears down when everything depends on impulse. Get organized and you'll notice something important. You start to act even when you don't feel like it, not because you force yourself violently, but because it's already decided. Order reduces the need to negotiate with yourself. When you know what needs to be done and when to do it, action becomes more automatic and less emotional. A fundamental practical teaching is to understand discipline is not force, it's coherence. It's not about demanding more from yourself, but about structuring your day better. When actions are previously defined, the mind stops discussing. Order eliminates internal friction that exhausts will and sabotages constancy. Many people try to change their life with great sporadic efforts. They demand too much from themselves for little time and then exhaust themselves. Order functions differently. It's based on small actions, repeated and sustained. Organizing you implies creating simple routines you can maintain even on difficult days. The small, when constant, becomes powerful. Another key point is reducing unnecessary decisions. Each decision consumes mental energy. Choosing what to do, when to do it, and how to do it over and over wears down. Order acts as a filter. Decide before so you don't always decide. This frees energy for what's truly important and strengthens discipline without excessive effort. Disorder also manifests when clear personal rules don't exist. Flexible schedules without limit, commitments without priority, habits without structure. Organizing you implies establishing simple rules that are respected even when you don't feel like it. These rules don't take away freedom. They give you stability and predictability. A concrete practice to strengthen discipline is to create daily rituals. They don't have to be complex or rigid. A clear beginning of the day, a defined moment for the important, and a conscious closing. These rituals create order, reduce improvisation, and reinforce the identity of someone who gets organized and fulfills. Motivation can serve to start, but never to sustain. Order, instead, sustains even when motivation disappears. When you understand this, you stop blaming yourself for not feeling like it and start building systems that accompany you even in difficulty. Order also protects your discipline against distraction. When everything is defined, interruptions lose power. You know when to attend to them and when not. This strengthens focus and avoids constant dispersion that weakens any advance. This chapter leaves a central idea. Don't wait to feel motivated to get organized. Get organized and not depend on motivation. Success doesn't belong to the fastest or most motivated. It belongs to those who get organized and sustain that order over time. When discipline is born from order, advancing stops being a struggle and starts being a consequence. Chapter 10. Internal disorder is reflected in your results. Many people try to change their external results without reviewing what occurs in their interior. They want better habits, more discipline, and greater success, but ignore the direct relationship between the way they think, decide, and act. Internal disorder is not abstract or invisible. It manifests concretely in the results you obtain day after day. When your thoughts are dispersed, your actions will also be. You jump between ideas, doubt your decisions, and change course easily. You start projects with intention, but abandon them because an internal structure doesn't exist that sustains them. The problem is not lack of desire, it's lack of internal clarity. Get organized starting by observing how you make decisions. Many times you decide from the pressure of the moment, from tiredness, or from urgency, not from intention. Internal disorder usually expresses itself as constant haste. Everything seems to require immediate attention, although not everything has the same importance. That continuous urgency wears down and confuses. A fundamental practical teaching is to learn to pause before deciding. Not reacting immediately creates mental space. That space allows you to order thoughts, evaluate options, and choose with greater coherence. When you decide with calm, your actions align better with your objectives. Internal order is built in those small moments of conscious pause. Another important aspect is coherence between what you say you want and what you do each day. Many people affirm they want to advance, but maintain habits that contradict that objective. This internal conflict generates emotional wear and frustration. Organizing you implies aligning intention and action. When there's coherence, energy strengthens and advance becomes more stable. Internal disorder also manifests in excessive self-demand. Want to do everything perfect. Constantly comparing yourself or punishing yourself for past errors occupies unnecessary mental space. Order is not perfection, it's clarity. Accepting limits and learning from errors frees energy to advance with greater focus. A concrete practice to create internal order is to review your decisions at the end of the day, not to judge yourself, but to understand patterns. Ask yourself from where you acted, what decisions you made with clarity, and which from impulse. This exercise strengthens consciousness and reduces repetition of internal errors. When internal order strengthens, external results begin to change naturally, not because the environment is different, but because you act with greater coherence, make fewer impulsive decisions, sustain your commitments better, and abandon with less ease. Advance stops being erratic. Many people seek external techniques to improve results without working this point. But without internal order, any system fails. Personal organization begins inside. From there, it projects toward time, goals, and daily actions. The interior directs the exterior, although you're not always conscious of it. Internal disorder also reflects in the way you handle pressure. When there's no internal clarity, any difficulty seems bigger. With internal order, problems are seen with greater perspective. They don't disappear, but stop dominating you emotionally. This chapter leaves a clear idea. Your results are not casual. They're the reflection of your way of thinking, deciding, and acting. If there's internal disorder, there will be unstable results. If there's clarity and order, results align. Get organized from within. When internal order establishes, advance stops depending on luck and starts responding to conscious and sustained decisions. Chapter 11. Getting organized is a form of respect toward yourself. Many people seek respect outside, without having built it first inside. They want to be valued, heard, and taken seriously, but live in a disordered way, postponing the important and failing themselves over and over. Personal respect is not born from what you say. It's born from how you get organized and how you sustain your decisions when nobody observes you. When you don't get organized, you send a silent message to your mind that your time is not important, that your goals can wait, and that your commitments with yourself are negotiable. That message repeats day after day until weakening self-esteem, not because capacity is lacking, but because coherence is lacking between what you say you want and what you do in practice. Get organized and something profound starts to change. You start to fulfill yourself. You start to respect your own schedules, your own limits, and your own priorities. That respect doesn't depend on external recognition. It's built in the daily when you do what you said you were going to do, even when you don't feel like it and when nobody sees you. A fundamental practical teaching is to understand self-respect is reflected in how you administer your energy. Saying yes to everything is a form of disorder. Accepting more than you can sustain wears you down and subtracts personal value from you. Organizing you implies learning to say no without guilt. Order protects your energy and reinforces your personal dignity. Another key point is coherence between word and action. Many people speak well to themselves, but treat themselves badly with their habits. They promise themselves changes, but don't sustain them. Organizing you means aligning what you say to yourself with what you do each day. That coherence strengthens internal confidence and personal respect. Disorder also manifests in self-demand without structure. Demanding from yourself without order is not discipline. It's wear. Self-respect implies establishing realistic expectations and systems you can sustain. Order is not punishing yourself. It's taking care of yourself with intention. When you get organized, you stop mistreating yourself with impossible promises. That a concrete practice to strengthen personal respect is to establish minimum non-negotiable commitments. Not big promises, but simple actions are fulfilled every day. Getting up at a defined hour, dedicating a clear space to the important, closing the day with consciousness. Each fulfilled action reinforces the image you have of yourself. When you get organized, you also organize your internal dialogue. You stop speaking to yourself from guilt and begin to speak to yourself from responsibility. Internal order eliminates excuses and replaces self-deception with clarity. This doesn't make you hard on yourself. It makes you honest and consistent. Self-respect also reflects in how you handle external chaos. When there's internal order, not everything affects you the same way. You learn to choose your battles, not to react to everything, and to protect your focus. Getting organized gives you emotional stability against external pressure and against others' expectations. Many people don't advance because they don't trust themselves, but confidence doesn't appear from nowhere. It's built with coherent actions. Each time you get organized and fulfill, you reinforce that confidence. Personal respect becomes a solid base on which you can build bigger results. This chapter leaves an essential idea. Getting organized is not just a strategy to have success. It's a way of treating yourself with respect. When you respect yourself, you take care of your time, your energy, and your decisions. And when that occurs, success stops being a distant idea and starts feeling possible and deserved. Chapter 12. Success is a consequence of how you get organized. Throughout this audiobook, a central idea has been repeated from different angles. Nothing changes in a sustained way if your life functions without structure. Success doesn't appear suddenly or arrive as a reward to isolated effort. It's built when you decide to get organized and maintain that order, even when nobody observes you and when there are no immediate results that validate you. Many people wait for the perfect moment to start. They wait to feel ready, secure, or motivated, but that moment almost never arrives. Real change begins when you act even with doubts, even with discomfort, even without guarantees. Getting organized doesn't mean having everything resolved. It means deciding to advance with clarity in the middle of uncertainty. Getting organized is assuming responsibility over your daily life. It's stopping reacting and starting to direct. It's understanding each small decision sustained over time builds a direction. Success is not pursued. It's produced as a consequence of how you use your time, how you choose your priorities, and how you respect your personal commitments. Order doesn't promise quick results. It promises stability. And stability is the base on which any real progress is built. When your life has structure, the mind calms, discipline sustains, and decisions simplify. What before seemed heavy begins to feel manageable. Many people underestimate themselves because they only look at big results. They ignore the power of daily decisions. But the reality is clear. The small, when sustained, becomes big. Order applied constantly ends up transforming any area of life, even those that seem stuck for years. Get organized even when you don't see immediate changes. Order works in silence. At first it's not noticed, but it accumulates. Clarity increases. Confidence strengthens, and focus becomes firmer. Without realizing it, you start to act differently, to decide better, and to advance with less friction. Chaos exhausts, order sustains, and when order becomes part of your identity, success stops being a distant goal and starts becoming a natural consequence of how you live each day. It's not about controlling everything, but about having clarity on the essential. You don't need to change everything at once. You need to start with something concrete, a habit, a decision, a priority. That first act of organization marks a real difference. From there, the process is built step by step with coherence and constancy. Before finishing, stop a moment and ask yourself with honesty, what area of your life needs more order right now? Don't look for a perfect answer. Look for a real answer. That's the one that matters and the one that can change your course. And if this audiobook gave you clarity, I invite you to leave in the comments this phrase as personal commitment. I get organized today to build the success I want. It's not a phrase for others. It's a decision for you. Remember this. Success doesn't belong to the fastest or most motivated. It belongs to those who get organized and sustain that order when enthusiasm disappears. When you get organized, your life starts to respond differently. This audiobook ends here, but the real work begins now. Because getting organized is not an objective that's fulfilled once, it's a way of living. And when you choose to live with order, the path becomes clearer and advance stops being a constant struggle. Get organized. Success is built from there.